So hello to everyone. It's such pleasure to see you all, and the event is really fantastic and inspiring in so many ways. So now we take our turn to move to discussing more about the complexities of how to publish in English. And my name is Natalia, and I have this honor to moderate this session, the members of the panel who are editors of prestigious English medium journals. And this is my honor that they have agreed to participate despite their really busy schedules. Well, so first of all, I would like to welcome the members of the editorial panel. And so this is Natalia, an associate professor. She's based in the US, and she is currently the co-editor of the Journal of Language and Discrimination. Natalia, hello. Really nice to see you.
Hi.
Yeah. Okay. So we also have Sandra, an educational researcher. She has published extensively, and now she is the guest editor of the Journal of the University Teaching and Learning Practice. And I'm really happy that Sandra is today with us. Sandra, can you say hi?
Hello.
Yes, hello. Really nice to see you. Okay. We also have Marina. She is an associate professor of linguistics and is based in Moscow, in Russia. And she is the executive secretary of the journal published by the HEC University, which is called Journal of Language and Education. Marina? Are you here? Are you with us?
I'm here. Hello.
Yes, hello. Really nice to see you. Lovely.
Glad to see you too.
Yes, and we also have Pejman, an assistant professor of applied linguistics based in Canada, who is a founding co-editor of the Journal of English for research publication purposes, and even and also a founding book series co-editor of the Routledge series in English for research publication purposes. So I think this is the person who knows everything, all the insides of academic publishing. Hello, Pejman.
Hi, everyone. My pleasure to meet you all.
Yeah, good, great, fantastic. So just briefly, a few rules to this panel. We would like to all the participants to share the questions and your comments in the chat box, so that during our session I can dive into your questions and also address them together with our guests. And some of the questions we have received before the panel, so we have a list and we have discussed them with the panel members so that we can cover them to the extent that we can. Some of the questions we will do our best to address during this panel, and some of the questions might be not covered during the session, but we would be happy to hear from you these questions so that we will collect them, and after the panel we will find a way to share with you our understandings and answers. So we will inform you afterwards. So I hope that this kind of discussion is just a start so that we can in future run further and new interesting conversations related to academic publishing. Right. So before this conference, the participants had a chance, they were invited to share questions for this particular panel, what kind of challenges they see, they face when they try to publish a paper in English, which is quite often a non-native language to majority of us. And the questions range from the following ones, like what drives editors crazy? So how one can become a reviewer? What is a successful paper? Any criteria, any algorithms to prepare a strong paper? Do journals prioritize certain papers? Do they select particular papers for publishing? How can I find and choose a journal? So this kind of range of questions to me signal that there is a kind of complexity of factors which shape what we do, how we perceive publishing in English. And some of the questions belong to the domain of rhetoric, and how to structure a paper, how to have a kind of strong argument. And today, in the during one of the panels, for example, Karen talked a lot about this kind of complexity that text structure is, on the one hand, is clear. There is cohesion, but at the same time, academic language doesn't belong to anyone. So we all have to learn the ropes, how to write strong text. Another set of questions relate to some kind of strategies that we as authors develop throughout our experiences, how to find a journal, how to deal with reviewers, how to do this or that. And today in the panel, one of the panels by Caroline, that was an interesting discussion of how to choose the right journal and the consequences, like when you do not choose the right journal. And interestingly, that David Connolly also mentioned today that this kind of request and feedback, revise and resubmit, quite often perceived by non-native speakers, at least in our context, as like very, very strong pressure, and writers quite often decide not to resubmit at all. I mean, they treat this text as a kind of failure. So this is also a potential kind of challenge and problem for us. And some of the questions relate to some kind of back office work of journals, how reviewers work, how journals work. So what happens behind the scenes in reviewing. So to put it all in a kind of nutshell, we can say that non-native speakers, for example, in our case, these are mostly Russian scholars and educators. We have to work in new to us in a kind of different writing culture. And this kind of new culture brings a lot of challenges to us, and surely many hidden aspects which are not that obvious, even from the first, second, or third attempt you make. So to proceed and to unpack this complexity, I suggest that we talk with our distinguished guests. And I would like to ask my question to Natalia. Natalia, has anything went wrong with your publishing experience?
With my own publishing experience? Well, thank you for the interesting question. I've gotten a few desk rejects, yes, and it was painful. And probably the most painful experience that I've had, I got the comment. I don't think the reviewer used the exact words, but it sounded like, honey, just because you don't know about something doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Ooh, that hurt. That hurt, but I learned my lesson, and I became much more careful in the claims I made. And then I did publish in some journals that I consider prestigious and something that I'm proud of. If I may piggyback on some comments that Natalia, you have just made, I would emphasize the importance of choosing the right journal. When you were talking about that, I was just all excited inside because yes, dear researchers, please choose the journal carefully. For example, right now, I'm a co-editor of the Journal of Language and Discrimination. Okay, does the title tell you something? So if you have a research paper, a great research paper on teaching methodology, do you have a chance at language and discrimination? It's a desk reject right away. And it's going to hurt. Why would people do that? But we get submissions on literature analysis, one after another. And it's a desk reject, desk reject, desk reject immediately. We do it very quickly. Because we definitely know that we're not going to send it out for peer review. And we get papers on foreign language methodology. This is going to be a desk reject, unless you're demonstrating that some kind of teaching technique is discriminatory. then yeah. But if you're just talking about teaching methods, it's going to be a desk reject. So it's very important to choose your journal appropriately. Well, that kind of connects to having a good library at your university, because it's important to be able to open several articles that have been published in this particular journal and read through them and get a feeling for what kind of materials this particular journal publishes. And sometimes you might have to do a little bit of searching, right? So if you think that you're going to send to, for example, writing and pedagogy, try to read several articles from this journal so that you have a feeling what kind of research or what kind of papers this particular journal normally publishes or has published in the past. That would give you some idea of whether or not your paper has a chance there. So good luck.
Yeah, thank you, Natalia. Yeah, so that's a very insightful comment about choosing the right journal and the significant consequences of this kind of decision, because it leads to at least losing time, wasting time for waiting for the decision, and then reshaping the paper for another journal, which takes another time. So that's a really salient issue. Okay, and Sandra, can I ask you a question? You are now a guest editor. Is it possible that your papers, any of them, has ever been rejected?
Thanks, Natalia. Yeah, absolutely. I did have my papers rejected. So I have published widely. My current role is a researcher at the University of Calgary. And so that involves writing papers, writing reports, and not everything gets through. Especially I remember one paper co-authors and me submitted to a journal on education and art. So education is my area of expertise, and we thought it to be quite fitting. And as it comes up again and again, it was rejected. And I quote, the editor and the reviewer said, "The submission is clearly a visual essay rather than an article." So we authors thought it's a journal that's interested in the art, not just as a theoretical concept, but also as a practice. But obviously what they were looking for were theoretical papers. So we submitted elsewhere and it got accepted and it got published. So to a journal that had a broader focus and that was open to alternative publishing formats outside the traditional article. So yeah, it's absolutely important to absolutely carefully read the small print of a journal to see if what you're submitting fits. And then also not to be disheartened. So a rejection really doesn't mean it's not a good piece. It just means sometimes it's not the right fit of where you submit it to. So as an editor, I encourage people really to look into the journal small print and figure out if what they want to go for is an absolute fit with what they've written. So that's very, very important. And the other thing is, you hardly ever get it right the first time round. So it can be a really good piece, but that you get it spot on with content, formatting, grammar, spelling, punctuation, with the title, with everything. That hardly ever happens. So there's often some small editorial work that goes into it. Sometimes it's more expensive, but you know, it's hardly ever that people get it in the first place without any changes.
Yes, thank you, Sandra. And it reminds us all about the kind of sensitivity of this publishing process. When you as an author receive this kind of rejection, it's really hard to, you know, process it and receive it, because it you know, it in a way threatens our social face, yeah, and this is kind of risky business. But I really love what you are saying, that this kind of rejection is not just say no to you. This is just say that this is not just the right fit at this particular moment, not the whole project and etc. Yeah, good.
Yeah, and if you're an editor, I mean, there is no way you publish something outside the scope of the journal. The journal has its aims and its audience, and they're not interested to read something that's not fitting with the topic or with the journal. So there is no way editors, or in my editor hat, I can accept it. So that has to be a rejection.
Okay, thank you, Sandra. Okay, so I would like to invite Marina. Can you share with us if anything has gone wrong with one of your papers ever?
Thank you, Natalia. Yes, of course, my paper was rejected once. That was my first experience of submitting my paper in English to a foreign journal. And when I got rejected, I even cried, you see, because I was so proud of myself that I managed to carry out the research, to just describe it in English and to submit to some prestigious journal, but I was disappointed when it was rejected. And but the comments the reviewer gave to me, they helped me a lot to realize what we should pay attention to when we just process our paper before the submission. Because you see, the comments were that the aim of my article wasn't clearly defined. And I think that's sometimes a problem, because when we got articles submitted to our journal, sometimes it's rather difficult for us to understand what author wants to say, why he wrote this article. And so I think that authors should pay more attention to this fact, to clearly define what gap of knowledge can be covered with their paper. And for me, that was just something new, because when I was even a postgraduate student, we were not taught to just follow this INRAD structure and I didn't realize at the time that all the structural elements should work, because in my discussion in that article, that was rejected, just in my discussion section, just I enumerated all the results again without explaining or comparing it to some other already existed ones. So just again, the aim of my article just wasn't clear. And that's why I had a night with tears. And then I decided to struggle and to revise it because it was like a challenge for me. You see, I had to read a lot of papers to understand the way that should be structured. I found some templates. I read the articles in the other journals to understand what should I do. And at last, my article was submitted. So just I was happy, the happiest at that moment, because you see, if you carry out the research, all these questionnaires, all these statistics, so just so difficult, so overwhelming, and at last you think that yes, I've done it, and again you have to revise it. So just I see that's a real challenge for authors, and just my advice in this situation, just you have to cope with your feelings and just to revise your paper and try again, because the more we try, the better our results, I think. So,
okay, yeah, thank you, Marina. I really love your emotional attitude to this situation, and your ability to pull yourself together, and just cry out and then just take the plunge and revise the paper and do your best, and it led to success. And I also like what you're saying, because it signals that this publishing is, when you publish in a different language, different to your culture, you need to explore the new different ways of rhetoric, yeah, structuring the paper and, you know, presenting results, for example, and meet certain conventions. And at the same time, you had to, for example, read lots of literature and learn this kind of different epistemologies, which, for example, exist in a different culture, which will be shaping the way you address a particular audience. And today in one of the plenaries, Carolyn talked about, for example, how difficult it is when you work, for example, on a big project and you publish some aspects of it. It's also, you need to make choices and it's related to different kind of decisions. Yeah, okay. And I will also would like to ask Pejman. So being the editor of the English for Research Publication Journal and the Routledge series editor, have you ever had any kind of failure or struggle in getting your paper published?
Definitely, yeah. I think that it's a very natural part of publishing. And if you want to publish, you need to grow thick skin, and you need to accept rejection and rejection and critical reviews and sometimes nasty reviews as part of the game. I have a few manuscripts that have been rejected and are sitting on the hard drive of my computer, and I'm just looking forward to finding some time to tweak them and then resubmit them to different journals. So I think that it's part of the process. And sometimes you just do it. You want to get a rejection, and you know that you're going to get a rejection. So to just give you an example, there was this paper that I co-authored with a very established scholar in applied linguistics, and then we submitted that to a very prestigious journal, and we knew that it would, it would get rejected. But we hope that it wouldn't get rejected, so that we could get some feedback from the reviewers, and then to revise the paper based on the feedback, and then resubmit it to a different journal, which we did. And again, the paper got rejected, even though we refashioned the paper based on the comments and review reports. And the things that, and there was also this interesting, and that it's not a very objective process. So there is a lot of subjectivity at both ends of the process, the writer's end and also the editor's end and the reviewers end. What you see is different from what they see in your paper, and what they're looking at could be completely a different problem and issue. So you see that there is a lot of ups and downs in the process, and what everyone has shared here is completely resonates, I think, that with every single scholar that is working in this field. But as everyone said, I think that it's a very strategic process, in the sense that lots of what helps a paper to get published happens before the even writing process. So you're expected to target the journal. There is different technologies that you can use to target journals internationally. So they are categorized and classified based on countries, fields, their impact factors, if they're online, on-site, in hard copy, and then you can target the appropriate journal. And then a very important thing is, as everyone said, reading the scope and the guidelines, the aims of the journal. And you don't want to just waste your time, waste reviewers' time, submit a paper to a journal that is not the right match for your paper. But I also like to highlight another important part of the publication process, which is the negotiation with gatekeepers. Although a lot of times I think that there is no negotiation, so you're expected to do what they want you to do, and although their comments are sugar-coated for you and presented to you in a way that these are our suggestions and you may want to do those things, but they're actually they're not recommendations and they're orders for you to follow. So, and you know, another example for one of my rejections was that there was this paper that I was invited by the editors actually to write for the journal. And then I submitted the abstract, it was accepted, I submitted the paper, it went through 2 rounds of review. And then, you know, I actually edited the paper and revised the paper based on the reviewers' comments. And then there was a time when I and one of the reviewers had this misunderstanding. And I think that it was on the reviewer's part, not my part, that I'm looking at this and you want me to look at this, and that's not what I want to do. And then there was, you know, that's when the negotiation stopped. And the reviewer said that, okay, if you don't want to do what I want you to do, I'm going to reject this. And I said, okay, you know, I can't do what you want me to do. And it got rejected. So negotiation is also a very important part of the publication process, you know, listening to what reviewers are saying, and then addressing their comments one by one, and then detailing your responses to their comments. You know, having, you know, my strategy is always having like a table with 2 columns. On one side, the reviewer's comments, and then on one side, my response to those comments in details, telling them what I can do and what I can't do. But I'm sure that a lot of times, you know, we got to do what they want us to do. And, you know, it's a very important process. There's extensive research looking at whether this process is a biased process, especially towards non-native speakers of English, which I don't think that there is systematic bias there. Because again, I don't think that when it comes to writing for publication, you know, a lot of things that you're sharing here are also shared by Anglophone scholars. And my research shows that they are also struggling with writing and publishing, even with the rhetorical and discursive aspect of publishing, not just non-discursive aspect and non-linguistic aspect of publishing. So I think that it's, and the interesting thing that one of the presenters said is that, okay, you know, we haven't learned. Basically, there is no, and that's what I'm pushing, that there needs to be courses, there needs to be professional development opportunities for especially graduate students and early career researchers to develop these literacies. And then if we want them to publish, we need to show them and we need to teach them how to publish.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Pejman. Yes, it resonates a lot with my experiences. I remember when I was a graduate student, and it was like discovering and reinventing the university when I had to learn how to publish and what it means. And if you don't get some kind of instruction into that, it's like always trial and error process, which can be too long, but we don't have that much time under the current evaluation regimes and the pressure that our universities put on us. Yeah. So
I just want to add something, that there is a growing concern for this, and there is initiatives in different international academic contexts. But one of the problems is that, again, the focus is too much on the writing aspect. So teaching people how to write, teaching people different genres, discursive practices, and there isn't much focus on non-discursive things. Like one of the presenters Marina was talking about the emotional aspect of that, which is not actually dealt with. And there isn't much research. You know, there is growing and, you know, research looking at discursive practices, but not time, family problems, resources that people have access to, support networks that they have access to. So also, you know, there needs to be research and attention to non-discursive aspect, negotiation with gatekeepers. You know, those should be also, those items should be also taught in initiatives and professional development opportunities.
Yeah, a very useful and great comment. Yeah, that teaching, you know, writing is not actually about only writing. Yeah, so it includes so many diverse aspects, and there are no, right and wrong questions sometimes, and this kind of negotiation process which happens around publishing. Okay, so I think that we should definitely now give the floor to our participants, and we all welcome questions from the audience. So I can see some comments in the chat box. So Olga asked I think that's a kind of rhetorical question. So if centers work on supporting writers in their publishing, they work with people from various disciplines. So won't it be difficult to correct language or to give recommendations of a better journal to be published? So I don't know, can we comment on this question with regard to, Natalia, please.
Thank you. I cannot talk about practices in all journals. I can tell you that when I receive a submission that is clearly written by a second language writer, and there are lots of language issues there is word choice problems, there are grammatical problems, I am going to overlook them if the content is good. So that is my personal practice. We have a copy editor. If the article goes through peer review successfully, if it has been confirmed that it's good, worthy content, I'm going to take it, I'm going to accept it, we'll send it to the copy editor in the end. So for me, content is the most important thing. So can I also piggyback on, there were several questions kind of related to peer review. One was if the article is not being sent for review because the editor says that they don't have appropriate reviewers. To me, it sounds like they're just telling you that the scope of the journal is not, or your article does not fit the scope of the journal, because it's a really strange thing to say to the person who submitted. For me as an editor, a lot of my effort is spent on finding peer reviewers who are willing and who have the time, who have the appropriate expertise, and who have the time and who agree to review papers. But I wouldn't say that, oh, I don't have anybody, so I'm not going to take your paper for peer review. And I think there was another question that was submitted ahead of time, how to become a peer reviewer. And another one about whether or not there are classes for that. I'm not aware of classes that teach somebody to become a peer reviewer. One of the common strategies that we have, unless we have some personal connection to a person who we think will be a great reviewer for a particular article, is to look at references, the list of references. So if a person cites somebody, it's likely that the person who is cited may be a good reviewer for the article. So we check other publications by this person if we don't know them ourselves. And that's sometimes how you can become a peer reviewer. So the advice, if you want to become a peer reviewer, publish good articles, impress people, and then editors might invite you to become reviewers. But I do not know of any classes that prepare a person to become a peer reviewer.
Yeah, thank you, Natalia. So we have quite an interesting conversation in the chat box. Ron made a comment, that whenever I have received a rejection, I knew the paper was pretty weak to begin with. So it's never a nice feeling, but in my case, it was never a complete surprise. And it's interesting that other participants join this conversation, and they find value in this kind of rejection. So keep things positive and keep optimistic. So for example, Natalia says that sometimes it's worth getting a rejection. First, you start working harder and stop procrastination, and secondly, you get valuable feedback. Okay, and Tanya asks a question that if there is any official training in reviewing in institutions, or is it a kind of practice that you can learn only, you know, through hands-on experience? What do you think? Yeah, Pejman, please. Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah,
go for it.
Okay,
I just think it's
yeah.
important to read widely. I just think, you know, practice comes not just through writing, it's also coming through reading. So if you read the journals you're interested in on the topics you're interested in, you get a good understanding of the field and you know what's currently discussed, you know, what are issues. And so I think reading is as important as, you know, having the writing background. And if you are looking into becoming a reviewer, I think, you know, you can easily start that by reviewing work of peers, of colleagues, informally, you know, in your office, the people you're teaching with or researching with, you can ask them and you can ask them to review your paper on an informal basis. And you can learn to give feedback and receive feedback on both ends. So before taking a more formal step and look at, you know, becoming a certified reviewer or, you know, signing up to a journal and become a reviewer, I think these are important steps that often get overlooked. So people think they want to start high up where they can practice in the everyday and, you know, get better.
Yeah, very useful comment. Pejman.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that there is research that has looked at the discourse and genre of peer review. So one of the ways would be to go and read that discourse to see, you know, how the genre is performed and what discursive moves and steps are taken to do peer review. In terms of the practice of peer review, actually journals are looking for good peer reviewers, because we always need actually peer reviewers. And, you know, although there is editorial members, but they're super busy people. So journals are looking for peer reviewers. A good strategy, and that's what I did, was that when I was doing my PhD, I approached a couple of journals and I said that I am ready and I want to actually do peer review for their manuscripts if they want. And then one of them accepted, you know, and then they sent me some guidelines to how to do the peer review. And the interesting thing was that you're right, there is no classes, although again, I'm doing this book where I'm looking at this, that, you know, if universities are providing these kind of courses for people to become reviewers. But anyways, so another way would be when you peer review for a journal, you know, most of journals, when they send back their review comments, they actually send the other reviewers report to you as well, or share it with you as well. So I used that as a template, because I knew that that was written by a peer. Maybe he was or she was more experienced than me, and I used the report as a sample of the genre, because it's an occluded or a semi-occluded genre, so you don't see those reports in public, you know, and yeah, one of them, as I said, one of the ways would be to look at the literature and the scholarship that is in that area, look at the discourse, and the other one is just to approach, you know, it takes resilience, and especially if you're a novice junior scholar, but then again, or sometimes you're lucky, you publish in a journal and then the reviewer gets another manuscript in the same field. And because, you know, you've published in that journal, they think that, okay, you would be a good fit to do the review for that journal. But, you know, that depends on your luck. But anyways, yeah, approaching editors is a good practice.
Yeah, thank you, Pejman. So yeah, Marina, so I don't know, Svetlana, we have actually run out of time. So I thought it would be like this, because once you start an interesting conversation, I mean, we can never stop. So what I suggest is that to keep to the schedule and not to meet this kind of common framework about Russians who do not keep time frames. Yeah, we will stick to the time. What I suggest, first of all, there has been a wonderful discussion in the chat box, and there are quite a few useful resources about peer reviewing, thanks to Rowan and other colleagues. I also would like to say that we will collect all the comments from the chat box and your questions, and we will address them after this session. We will stay in touch. And also the journal editors who are present today, the members of the panel, and we also have Ron Martinez, who is the editor of the journal, Oxford Journal of Applied Linguistics. I hope that they will be happy to share with all of us their emails and contacts, so that if you have a question, you'll be welcome to write them an email and clarify some probably issues which you have before submitting a paper. Okay, so after the event, we will circulate an email with a kind of summary information from the panel and useful links and contacts. And I would like to say lots of thanks to our guests, both to the audience for your wonderful and insightful questions, and both for our members of the panel. I know that you are terribly busy, and now you live in different time zones, and that's quite a huge pressure on your side. So I'm very thankful to all of you, and I'm looking forward to meeting you in the future, to join in other professional conversations, and good luck to all of us, and let's continue the conference.